Hello everyone and welcome to Kantan Japanese. Today's lesson is my second lesson about verbs. If you haven't watched my previous video about verb groups, make sure to watch that video before watching this one. Today's lesson will be an introduction to Japanese verbs and their conjugation in the present. I will also talk about two different levels of speech. To begin with today's lesson, I would like to talk about the level of speech. I would like to talk about two different levels of speech. There's the formal level and the informal level. What is said is sensibly the same, but the formal level and the informal level have a different tone. First, I would like to talk about the informal speech. The informal speech is used with family and close friends. It takes the dictionary form. By dictionary form, I mean the form that you find in the dictionary quite obviously. For example, this kanji over here with ru means okuru, which means to send, like to send an object to someone. This is the dictionary form, the form you'll find in the dictionary. Let's move on to the formal speech. The formal speech is what you use most of the time when you're not with your family and your close friends. But how do you get the formal speech? What does it look like? How do you get it? Well, the informal speech was the dictionary form. To get the formal speech, you simply add the suffix mas to the dictionary form. This is what I will explain in the following slides. Now, what is important to understand so far is that you will conjugate your verbs differently depending if you're using the informal speech or if you're using the formal speech. Now, about adding mas. It depends on the verb group. For the first group, what you do is you remove the final from the dictionary form and replace it with imasu. For the second group, you remove the final ru and replace it with masu. I will give a few examples in the following slides. Right now you might be thinking, wow, this is so complicated. But actually it's not that hard. Let's break it down together. First example, okuru, which means to send something, like to send an object. As I've covered in my previous video about verb groups, you check the ending of your verb, which is which means that this verb is part of the first group. Now you remove the and replace it with imasu. So let's look at the informal. This is the informal form, the dictionary form. So okuru, you remove the over there and you replace it with imasu. So the final result is okurimasu. Okurimasu. So the informal form is okuru and the formal form is okurimasu. Okay, let's check the dictionary form of example number 2. Taberu, which means to eat. Now what you want to do to get your formal speech form is you look at the ending of your verb, of the dictionary form of the verb, which is eru. So this means that this verb is part of the second group. To get your formal speech, you remove the ending ru and you replace it with masu. So the final result is taberu for the informal form, the dictionary form, and tabemasu is the formal form. Let's finally talk about the third group, about two irregular verbs of the third group. Kuru is the dictionary form and becomes kimasu, whereas suru is the dictionary form and becomes shimasu in the formal speech. So informal, formal, informal, formal. So you only have two to memorize for this one, so it's pretty easy. So that's all for today, folks. I would strongly recommend watching this video a couple of times from the beginning to make sure that you really understand how to conjugate your verbs, until you are able to identify your verb groups and finally conjugate verbs properly. That's it. That's all for today. Have a good one.